Students, I believe you can see the mock number 4. And students, I will correct your papers and give it by this Saturday. So students, first thing that you have to make sure is you have to get the understanding properly of how to do these questions also. So this is just one mock students, and this is just 60 minutes time period that you have for this mock. Now, again, students, exam questions are mostly like this. That means don't memorize everything what we learn in the classroom. Make sure, students, you understand and apply and do well in the examination. Now, students, if you observe this, let's initially write one thing that is important reflection in the examination is situational leadership. So I'll write down here, students, situational leadership. Now, students, situational leadership is your ability is based on the situation. Is based on what, students? The situation. Correct, no, students? It's effectively based on the situation, which we call it as the situational leadership. That means effectively, students, you are thinking as per the situation. Presence of mind, we effectively say. So generally, you make your own answers. I will mark it and give. But make sure, students, your thinking is more towards SAFEWELL, your company. If you are in a situation, how you are going to respond to a particular situation in that perspective. Now, students, look at this question clearly. So, discuss whether paying higher salary to security personnel are ethical issue. So, I'll write down here, students, discussion whether higher salary paid is an ethical issue. Is what issue, students? Ethical issue. Now, students, again, you can write an answer, but the discussion should be very, very strong. I will guide you with that as well. So I believe that is the first part. The second part is, students, discuss the remuneration policy of SAFEWELL. It's a corporate governance question, students. Now, in that case, you have to be very much concerned whether it is having any corporate governance issue and what are the amendments we can make. So I'll write down here, students, another heading, remuneration policy of SAFEWELL, and the other one is amendments to be made. Now, students, you may have some logical question. As a finance manager, can we interfere in these things? Technically, you're correct. But in this exam purpose, they just want the students to have the thinking on how you give solutions to situational issues. It's not like solving a question in the textbook. It's more like a situational solution you give, and it depends and it needs more practical thinking and maturity also. Now, John Sarkozy has sent you the mail. The management is very much concerned with regards to Analyst report that has been published in the Balandian blog. Now, students, there is an Analyst report that has been published in the Balandian blog. They are effectively saying. So just to keep your understanding, it's just a blog. It's just a blog. So students, can I ask you a question? Just a blog. Just a blog. Now, students, if you observe, one of the critical skill that in the top management you have to have is the skill of letting go. Because students, if you observe in the top management, you can't take everything personal. You have to have the ability of letting go. So students, can I quickly get a Y in the chat box, students? If you got this idea, students, because every news articles that is coming, you mustn't take it seriously, but you just need to have an idea. So moving forward, students, just to give that point of view, because letting go is one important point. Now here, with regards to the packages paid to the security officers, which is above the market price as well, the article has mentioned the following. Please refer the reference material. So the core area in this case is, students, this is effectively focusing on what the security personnel's packages. That means you are paying the security officers above the market range. I believe that is very, very clear for you all. Also, the same article has mentioned that the directors of SAFEWELL are paid high packages too. So again, they are saying directors are also paid high packages. So one is employees, and other one director top management, which are two above the market rate, which they have cited a corporate governance issue also. So students, now let's look at the reference material one. The management is very much concerned about the business issue that has been published in the blog of Balandia. In the blog, it is very much clear that there is a huge labor turnover in the state security personnel since private companies are paying more remunerations. I believe this is very, very, very clear for you all because above the government state. This seems to be very much unethical since security is a social need. In that case, we have to make sure we are able to provide better business sustainable policy with regards to general public. It's a very, very, very practical situation. You have to handle this question very much with high level maturity. Now, this is the article in that they have mentioned companies like SafeWell pay very high package to security officials who are very much trained by the government, and our tax money has been used for all their skills. And this seems very much unethical policy also, paying high level salary. Now the blog number 2. In the second blog, it is mentioned the directors of SafeWell earns a high remuneration. How did they get entitled to such a high package? There is a remuneration committee as well, right? Aren't the shareholders aware about this practice? We have to make sure there is some concern with regards to this as well. Other companies listed in the stock market to follow these practices eventually affects the shareholders well. Now, students, let's focus on the security personnel. Now, students, in the chat box, can you please write down, you think it is an ethical issue or you think it is fine? Ethical issue or fine, the first one. And why? If possible, can you shortly mention why in the chat box? What do you think? Is it ethical? If that's so, can you mention why? And if it is okay, that's fine. Again, can you just use the chat box, students? Can you please use the chat box? Thank you, Mr. Usman. It is fine, not ethical. Fine, we need to retain. Fine, fine, fine. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Now, I believe everyone has got the point of view is correct. The point of view is correct. Very happy. So I can sense that matured thinking is there. Now, for example, students, I'll ask you a question. Securities are effectively human beings. Do you agree with me? Securities are our students, human beings. Correct, no, students? Do you understand that perspective? Securities are human beings. They do also have the hierarchy of needs. Now, students, if a company is sufficient to pay higher salary for them, practically choosing a job is something a freedom of choice. You can't force people to do that, to do this. So in that case, I can effectively say this is still considered to be a normal practice. For example, students, a doctor, he can work in a government hospital or he can also work in a private hospital. And it's a matter of choice. A teacher can also work in a public school or a private school. Again, students, it's a matter of choice. Students, can I quickly get a confirmation from you all in the chat box, students, if you understood that matter of choice? Because that is something that you have to keep in mind. Because I don't think we are giving any bribes. I don't think we are doing anything illegal. We are effectively making sure that we are taking a calculated risk by paying them a high salary, because something's wrong happens, still we are accountable and effectively we are performing better than what is expected. So I think everyone has got a very, very good, sensible approach of writing and thinking at the moment. So wonderful. Thank you very much, students. So students, can I write down the answer here? with your applied thinking. So I'll write down initially a basic idea about ethics. Ethics are moral decisions based on situational judgments. Now, ethics is always gray, no students, situational judgments. Therefore, there is no proper correct ethical perspective. Correct ethical perspective. There is no proper correct ethical perspective. That is the point of view here. Further, ethics can be more judgmental. Further, ethics can be more judgmental, where the person can have different opinion. The person can have what, students? Different opinion. Students, are you understanding that perspective? Can I quickly get a Y in the chat box, students? If you are clear with that. If you are clear with that, can I quickly get a Y in the chat box, students? I believe that's the discussion point we have to keep in mind. Now, this is a basic point. Now, what I did, I gave a basic idea. Now, I'm going to go in more in relations to the case study, because the context, and then we have to apply to our business, and then we have to analyze the perspective, because that is important. Considering security business, there is high level of responsibility. Correct, no students? High level of responsibility. And also, the accountability is high. There are situations where the security personnel can get injured. The security personnel can get what, students? Injured. Students, can I get a confirmation from you all in the chat box if you understand that point? They can get injured, and sometimes due to injury, there can be an end to the career. So that is a important thing. Therefore, in that case, paying them a better package is something to be considered by individual company based on their value creation to the clients. Students, I believe that you all got that applied thinking properly, students, the value creations to the client. So students, can I quickly get a confirmation now if you are getting this perspective clearly? So this is the first point of view. Now, students, can I come to the next one, the taxation? Because students, the argument here is the tax money is invested on these people, and effectively what these people are doing, they are getting the training and they are making sure they go for something better. So I'll write down here. Generally, every profession needs an experience to build skills. Students, I believe that is very, very clear. Therefore, in most cases, professionals work in one entity in order to get the exposure. In order to get what, students? In order to get what, students? Please tell me. Exposure. Are you understanding that? I believe that is also very, very clear for you all. In order to get the exposure, the employer too benefits from their service. Since they earn some additional contribution as well. Now I am going to make sure I connect this to our case study. Considering the government sector security officials can have better training and better skills. The biggest challenge can be their age. Since when they get old, there are always replacement coming forward. There are always replacement what students coming forward. Students, can I get a Y in the chat box with regards to replacement coming forward? I believe that you got that point of view. So I will continue this even more clearer. Therefore, in most cases, for government service, there will be more recruitments from freshers. In that case, there is always a stability in HR, although the staffs retire or the staff resign. So that is one factor there. That is very clear also, students, very clear also. In that case, what can be the relevance to tax money? That is the question. Since there is always a flow in labor, because that's a flow in labor, correct? In that case, the decisions of individual is their freedom. Is their freedom. Full stop. Now that is also clear. Now the next one, I'll write down a small note. Integrity is when a corporation is not honest in their business dealing. It can be illegal activities as well. In the case of remuneration package, anything above minimum wage is acceptable. Students, are you clear with that? Anything above the minimum wage is acceptable. Are you understanding that perspective, students? I believe everyone has got that, because you have the rights to pay anything above the minimum wage, students. There is nothing to be concerned or worried about. So I'll write down here, in the case of SAFEWELL, the remuneration policies for the employees are highly transparent. Are highly what, students? Transparent. In that case, paying higher salary above the competitors is generally a business practice. For instance, an HR strategy to retain more employees and also to ensure the labor turnover is managed. Now, students, I am going to continue this so that it will be even clearer. Therefore, in most cases, The remuneration policies are not an issue since there is no exploitation of labor. So I'll just write down, this is a common case study, always CIMA examiner just keeps in mind. So I'll write down here, for instance, in Vietnam, the outsourced employees are paid below the minimum wage. In that case, it is a ethical issue as well, since human exploitation. Full stop. Now, students, considering the last sentence, so I'll just complete the last one also as a conclusion. In the perspective with regards to ethical versus business, it all depends on how the majority perceives. How the majority perceives, because majority makes the decision. So can I continue in this case? Since in Balan, this can be an accepted norm. This can be what norm, students? An accepted norm. This can be what norm, students? An accepted norm. Therefore, in that case, there is always a situation where this remuneration standards are transparent and clear. So, look at the way. So, it is up to the government to increase the benefits to their staffs in case if they prefer to retain, such as pensions and other benefits can be provided. Therefore, we can ignore these statements. Full stop. Students, are you clear with the answer? Can I get a confirmation from you all in the chat box? Now, see the last one. Now, government only should effectively increase the benefit. Are you understanding that perspective, students? Are you getting that, students? Now, in certain countries, students, they pay very high level of salaries for the government or the state employees. For example, Middle East countries, their government staffs are paid very, very high salary. The main reason is they are directly giving them a better service, so that in that case, what's happening is they are not moving forward. So now the question arises, is it's government's decision to make sure the salary is high or low, but it's up to us to increase our salary or no. And if people are coming to our business, again, there is no issue because it's a benefit. It's a matter of choice. It's a matter of choice. So I'm coming for the next question, students. The remuneration policy of SAFEWELL. Students, can we work on the remuneration policy of SAFEWELL? Now, students, if you observe, they are telling again the director salaries are higher. So will that be a corporate governance issue? Now, again, I am asking you a question, students. In this case, once again, is this a corporate governance issue? That's the question I have to ask from you. What do you think, students? Is this a corporate governance issue? That is the question. You can use the chat box, students. What do you think? Is this really a corporate governance issue? Can you please think and let me know, students? Because that matters at the end of the day. Because what is your perspective, students? What is your perspective? What is your perspective? Please do let me know, students. Please do let me know what is your perspective in this case. Ethically, is that again another issue or not an issue? That's my question to the class. Now, students, if you observe the case study properly, I again think no, it's not an issue. The reason is, students, already there is a remuneration committee here. You understood what I'm saying, no, students? So there is a remuneration committee. Now that means we have to go with the corporate governance of comply or explain, because it's actually a principle based. Because students, in certain companies, Marks and Spencer, there is a company. Marks and Spencer CEO and the chairman is the same person. But what happens is they effectively consider that as a comply or explain. But according to the corporate governance rules, it should be what, students? Chairman should be separated, CEO should be separated. Correct, no, students? But in the case of Marks and Spencer, it is going with the form of chairman and the CEO is same. So can I get a confirmation from you all in the chat box if you understood that Marks and Spencer example? That is principles. Rule based means you follow everything. The rules of United States of America, which is the Sarbanes-Oxley Act. They don't want to test that in detail, students. They may not ask you, but they are just checking your maturity level in this case. Now, students, here, the remuneration policy, before we go into that, we have to give some basic idea about the corporate governance styles. So I'll just write down here, the corporate governance is predominantly based on two types. I'll write down here, students. One is rule-based corporate governance. One is for students, rule-based corporate governance. In that, can we write down some notes so that it will be easier? This is based on the USA Code of Governance, where entities needs to follow the rule. In the case where they don't follow, there can be penalties and suspensions from the stock market. Penalties and suspension from what, students? Stock market. Penalties and suspensions from the stock market. Therefore, this is a highly rule-based governance. This is highly a rule-based governance. Rule-based governance. And there are always loopholes in rules which too can be exploited, which too can be what, students? Which too can be what, students? Exploited. I believe that is clear for you. Now let's go for the second one, students. Principle based corporate governance. So one is the rule based, you have to follow that, but still rules have loopholes, you can utilize that as well. So I'll write down here, this is mainly followed in UK, where the idea is comply or explain. Comply or what, students? Explain. The idea is what, students? Comply or explain. This is mainly in UK, where the idea is what, students? Comply or explain. In that case, there is always a method where the company will have to ensure there is a valid explanation for the reasons behind the decisions taken. And if the shareholders are happy with the decisions, in that case, there is no issues. Therefore, in this case, the market controls the companies. That means market decides, not the legislation. If market doesn't like you, in that case, there will be an issue also. So students, I believe this two introduction is very, very important when you are writing this. So can I quickly get a Y in the chat box, students? If you get these two point of view properly, students, because these two point of view is very, very, very important. Thank you. Thank you very much. Now, students, let's quickly go to the application. Let's quickly go to the application so that you will become even clearer. So I'll write down here. In the case of SAFEWELL, there is already a remuneration committee. There is already a remuneration, what students? Committee. In the case of SAFEWELL, there is always a remuneration committee. In that case, there is a possibility that all the remuneration packages to the directors are audited and also presented to the shareholders as well. In that case, it is understandable that the auditors have disclosed these evidences to the public, where the current statements are made. Because students, how can the current statement come if the information is not there to the general public? So in that case, one thing we have to understand, students, the remuneration committee is already there. The remuneration packages are already audited, present to the shareholders, and also available to the public. So in that case, students, again, there is no corporate governance issue. So I'll write down here, since there is a transparency and the shareholders are not having any issues, this can be regarded as a business practice. And this is comply, or explain. Students, I believe that is also clear. In that case, we have to ensure that this is more clearer to the market. Therefore, we can also consider that this company has a better pay package overall, considering the nature of risk involved. Nature of risk involved. Now, students, in the answer, please somewhat write down this point. Nature of risk involved. Can I please highlight this word, students? Nature of risk involved. Because higher the risk, you have to pay higher the reward also. So finally, I'll write down here. Therefore, this is not an issue. This is not an issue with regards to corporate governance. With regards to corporate governance. So that is one factor to be considered. Now, amendments to be made. So I'm going to go through the amendments to be made. The best explanation can be that In Balandia stock market, the market functions with principle-based approach. Therefore, this needs to be educated as well. In that case, this will effectively lead to a better business decision, a better, I can say, business information to the market, information to the market. Students, can I quickly get a confirmation from you all in the chat box if you are clear with this? Because whenever there is a question coming like this, the dilemma questions, we call it as this dilemma questions, students, they fall into the trap of the examiner. Because always students are used to write yes for everything. When they ask ethical issue without thinking, they say a yes answer. That is not required in the exam perspective. So students, I believe everyone has got the clarity behind the writing the dilemma answers. So I'll come for the one-to-one session, students. So I'll just talk to you all. So Anna, madam, any questions? Dixita, any questions? Mr. Ifzal, any questions? John, any questions? Mr. Rahul, any questions? Raj, any questions? Taxila, any questions? Mr. Usman, any questions? Because be very careful, situational leadership, students. The thing is situational leadership. Now, it's like in office or your house. In your house, you are a situational leader, right? Depending on the children's need, you will react. You will not say yes for everything what they're asking. Depending on the needs only, you will say yes or a no. So company is also situational leadership. So students, I will meet you in the Friday class. Friday class, we will do a live mock and I'll give you one more test as well. For today, what I'm suggesting is you just analyze these notes, whatever we have done. And again, I'm telling, when your mind is empty, you can think better. But when your mind is having so many distractions, you will have a problem. That's the style of the class here. Give you more and more freedom and calmness so that you can think better in the examination. So thank you very much for all your valuable time. I'll meet you on the next class, students. Thank you very much, students. Take care. Good night, everyone.